That was
So welcome, friends. I'm so glad you were able to join us this evening. My name is Mary Catherine Lundquist. I work at the COSA Institute for Alzheimer's Disease and Related Disorders at Rutgers University and care to caregivers. And we love to provide programs like this where caregivers can come together and learn a little bit and talk about things that they are experiencing and hopefully, learn something that's going to help them go forward and do a better job taking care of themselves as they are caring for someone who is needing their assistance now as well. Thank you so much to our friends at Atlas Health for hosting this session this evening. We are so grateful to have this opportunity to come together and to share in this very important topic. So we do have everybody muted here. If you do want to share, I will ask people to share at certain points. If you do want to mute, we're definitely open to that. So please be mindful of that. You can also use chat too as we go ahead. So now caregivers experience many different types of grief over the long process of caring for someone who has memory loss or maybe other complex issues going on as well. Sometimes as caregivers, we can find it hard to understand, to accept, and to honor all that comes along with this grief before the person actually dies. We're hoping that this presentation will give you, the caregivers, a chance to explore your own experiences and also identify some ways that you can cope going forward. We have a few learning objectives here. So this is kind of our map for our next hour together here. We are hoping at the end of this that you will be able to describe the different challenges for caregivers related to grieving. Second, that you will be able to identify ways of coping with ambiguous loss and anticipatory grief. And third, from all the tips that we're going to share here, hopefully you can choose one positive step or goal for yourself to help you move forward. So as we get started here, I would love to hear from our participants who are joining us this evening. Who are you caring for? So if you want to take a moment and you want to type in chat and let us know, are you caring for a mother, a father, a spouse, maybe another relative? Take a moment and let us know in chat, who are you caring for? My mother, thank you. Husband. My wife. So different relationships, right? Some of us might be caring for more coming in. My mother, thank you for sharing that. My father. We have a professional who's with us this evening, and they're caring for many people who live in a nursing home. So definitely this impacts professional caregivers as well as family caregivers as well. It's hard on all of us. So we have a nice mix here of people who are caring for different people with different relationships. And we have a friend sharing, watching my mom care for her husband. So sometimes we're, more extended relationships as well. But there's a layer of this grief that kind of impacts everyone. Although we each might have unique circumstances in our lives as well, there is something very personal about what we're going through that's very individual based on the relationship that we have with that person and what their disease is, how it's presenting for them, what we're witnessing going on in their lives. But there's also a layer that we kind of share this together. We see this a lot in our support groups when we come together in our caregiver support groups and talk about this. Many people are experiencing this on one level or another at the same time, right? So there is a layer that we are all in this together. So Nancy Reagan, our former president, I don't know if you remember her and her husband, our former president who had Alzheimer's disease. She actually wrote the book, The Long Goodbye. So, and when we think about her life experience, her husband had excellent health care, right? He probably had round the clock people there who were assisting him. And she was able to keep him at home. He probably had the best doctors and everything. But even though there might be differences in our circumstances of our lives, everyone still will experience some same level of this grief that we are going to talk about this evening. So let's go over a few terms. So the first thing that we're going to talk about, it's ambiguous loss. And this term was coined by a psychologist. Her name is Pauline Boss, and she is from Minnesota, and she coined this term. She has written about it. She has studied about it. She has a wonderful website where she has many wonderful resources on this, where you can go and you can read on her website. You will have a very nice handout after this that Atlas Health is going to send to you. So you can look up some of the things that we are talking about as well. And she also has many books that caregivers find so helpful on this topic and on other topics related to caring for someone who has memory loss as well. So Dr. Boss coined this term for us, and she tells us that there are two different kinds of ambiguous loss. So let's talk about the first kind. Ambiguous loss type 1 is when there is a physical absence of the person with a psychological presence. And this may be if there was an instance of a person was kidnapped, or a person was missing in action due to war or ethnic cleansing, or there was a natural disaster such as an earthquake or a flood, and the body was not able to be located. So you're not sure, is my person dead or is my family member alive? So there's the absence of the body, but the person is very present in our minds all the time. This term also can refer to how we can feel if there's been a divorce. Maybe that person is no longer present in the home with you, but they're very present psychologically and you're thinking about them a lot. Also, in cases of adoption, same thing. Maybe the child isn't there, but that child is always very, very present. So the physical absence with the psychological presence. Type 2 of ambiguous loss relates more to what we're talking about with memory issues. And this is when there is a psychological absence with a physical presence. So it's kind of the reverse of that. So the person is there, they are right in front of us, but they are psychologically absent. Our loved one may be emotionally or cognitively gone or missing, such as with Alzheimer's disease or some of the other dementias, like Lewy body disease or Parkinson's disease or frontal temporal lobe dementia. Sometimes people, when they get various neurocognitive diseases, their personality really changes, right? So they're in front of you, but they really are a different person. This can also apply to individuals who have had traumatic brain injury in the past, or if they are dealing with addiction or depression or any other long-term mental or physical illness that really leads them to periods where they are changed and they are not the same person at all. So type 2, the person is there with us, but it's not the same person. So we're going to watch a video of a husband talk about what this experience was like for him when he was caring for his wife. So just bear with me for a minute. I have to optimize the screen here so you can hear the sound.
I'm lucky really because I was lover to one of the most beautiful women in the world, and what man wouldn't want that? She is physically beautiful. The very first time I ever saw her, it was like looking at Grace Kelly. But I've gone from being her lover to her carer, and that's heartbreaking. I've always been in control of my life, as a journalist, as a reporter, as a newscaster. I knew what was happening and I was in control. Suddenly, I'm not in control anymore. This is happening despite me, and it makes me angry. Bon is contented. I go to see her, and she's in a care home. She's now been in for 6 or 7 months. She's never once asked me where she is, why she's there, where have I been, what have I been up to, all the sort of things a normal wife would ask. No questions at all. She is contented. I'm not. I know. I remember what she's forgotten. I still have the memories that she's now lost. So dementia can get the carer too. You find yourself grieving. You're mourning. You're going through the grieving process for someone who is still alive. If I'm with her in the care home and I whiz off to talk to one of the carers, when I come back she greets me as if she hasn't seen me for days. And I took her to Venice and we had just the most wonderful, wonderful holiday ever. And the illness had already begun. But she loved it, and now she doesn't remember a thing about it. The Bonnie I loved, I have lost. Bonnie is still there, and I still love her. This is a different Bonnie. That's what this vile disease does.
So very powerful story, right? Very powerful. I'm wondering from our friends who are here this evening, could anybody relate to what he was talking about? And you can just type in chat and let us know about that too. Does it sound like something that you felt? Have you felt any of the things that that John described for himself here in the video? Well put, describes exactly how I feel. Thank you for one of our friends sharing with us, right? Right. So there we get the whole universal aspect of this, right? You know, similar situations and feeling the same way. Yes, definitely. Feel the loss of having certain aspects of my dad no longer there. And another friend sharing, yes, most definitely. So thank you, friends, for sharing that. Thank you. So these are some of the things that we might say as caregivers when we're feeling this way. We're not going to go around and say, oh, I'm experiencing ambiguous loss, right? We might after this, because now we know what that term is, but we might say things like, she is here, but not here. I long for what we had in the past. I could deal with other illnesses better than with this. I have this empty, sick feeling that my loved one is gone. I am an orphan, although my mom is still alive. This is not the man I married. And many people say this when they are married. They'll say, I am married, but I'm single, because they're living in a home and their spouse is not able to talk or engage with them anymore. So they really do feel like they are single. And many caregivers sometimes do say it would be easier if he was dead, because this is very, very painful to be living with this kind of grief. We grieve the person, right? Definitely. We grieve the person who is not the same anymore, but we grieve many other things. We grieve the loss of the relationship. So I had a caregiver tell me a story once that she was driving in the car with her mother, and her mother had Alzheimer's disease. And the daughter was going through a really hard time in her life. The daughter was going through a divorce, and she was crying as she was driving, and she was telling her mom, because her mom was her best friend and she always talked about these things. And she was asking her mom what she should do. She wanted advice because she always asked her mother for advice. And she said, Mom, what should I do? And her mother said, I think you should turn right. When her mother said that, the daughter's heart just sank, because she knew that she had lost such an important friend in her life, her mother, who she always used to go to ask, important advice. Her mother was not available to her anymore. Her mother took her literally for what she meant, which way should I turn, which was not what the daughter was looking for at all. So we grieve that the relationship has changed and is different. We grieve the intimacy and the companionship. We might be living in the home with the person who is our spouse, but all the intimacy that goes with that might no longer be there. We grieve the role. Maybe the person who we're thinking about was the strong person who fixed everything around the house and took care of those things. And when they're no longer able to do that because of their memory loss, we grieve that they've lost that role. We grieve shared activities, things that we used to be able to do together and have fun doing together that are no longer options for us because of the person has changed so much. We grieve the freedom. Maybe we can't leave the home to go do things that we would want to do, even just for ourselves or with other people, because we can't leave our loved one alone. We can be grieving a lifestyle that we used to have. And most definitely, we can be grieving a future that we plan together. For many people, our lives do not turn out the way we anticipated when our loved one develops a disease that really impacts them like this. So grieving lots of things here. Anything else that we didn't talk about here as far as things that people might be grieving? If our friends who are joining us this evening want to add anything into chat here, please do that as well. Is there anything else that you might be grieving that isn't on our list here that you've been carrying with you? We would love to hear about that. If you think of anything, just type it in there. So I'm going to get ready because we're going to look at another video here. The last one was from their actions. So yes, the way they are, the way they carry, and the way they move themselves in the world, we can grieve that that has changed as well. Yes, thank you for sharing that. And shared memories, yes, yes. Especially when you've had a lifetime, when you've been with someone for a very, very long time and they no longer remember very significant events that you shared together, right? And now you're the one who carries those as well. We grieve for that. So our grieving can be broad. So we're going to look at another video now, and this is of a daughter who is talking about what it's like for her caring for her mother and how she is experiencing this.
See, very good. Yeah, to the kitchen table. I'm going to give you your guava pie.
Maite Garcia takes care of her mom who has
job.
Alzheimer's.
Okay.
87-year-old Maria Garcia. Each morning, Maite bathes
Nice
her,
job.
dresses
Okay,
her,
Mama,
cooks
te
for
toca la
her,
pastilla.
spoon feeds her, gives her all her
Nice job.
medications,
Did you wanna
sits
watch
with
some
her,
TV?
and then
What do
it's
you
off
wanna
to
do?
work. After a grueling day at the office,
here's your
Maite
hand.
returns home to start the routine with Maria all over again in the evening.
It's very difficult. It's very difficult when you are looking at someone and they're different now. You know, they're not the same person. And part of me is caring for her because I'm honoring who she was before.
You want your water?
And part of me is trying to honor and deal with the person she is now. My old mother was a dynamo.
How is Mom now?
She just really doesn't want to do anything. People see her like this, and that to them is who she is. And to me, that's not who she was, you know, before. And you're sort of, you know, a little bit, you're mourning every day because different parts of her die every day, and it takes you with her. Because once they're gone, being the person that knows you the best in a way from before you were born, and they lose that connection with you, then it's somehow that part of you disappears too, as a daughter. It's something so frustrating to lose the mind, to lose the connection with the real person, you know. With other diseases, it's like you're all fighting against that disease, and it's physical. If someone has cancer or another disease, who they are is still there, you know. They're still who they used to be, and they could still talk to you, you know, and you could still see that character and that personality. But with this, it's like a new person every day.
My
So still different relationship, right? Our first illustration was of a husband, right? But we see how it can impact us when we are adult children taking care of a family member as well. So wondering if any of our friends who are here and caring for a parent can relate to that at all. Did any of that kind of resonate with you about what she was experiencing? And you can type in chat there for us and let us know if that kind of hit home for you as well. For many people, it's not like a big thing that happens, but it's like a small kind of rolling ball that kind of happens. And you realize these things in little tiny increments as you go along every single day. So sometimes people talk about it like it's a little mini death, like when she doesn't recognize you anymore. That might be when you really think, oh my goodness, this person is really gone and they're not the same person. Or when they can't do what they used to be able to do, like fix the car, or when she forgets how to cook the chicken, or when I can't talk with him, maybe your partner, about your own illness that you might have. They're just not there for you. When she doesn't remember, and you can fill in the blank for whatever fits for you in your life. Wondering from our friends who are here, we would love to hear from you. When was a time in your recent history that you kind of realized that the person was just not the same anymore? When for you did you kind of experience like this mini death? If anybody wants to share an example and you want to type that in chat, we would love to hear that. It's different for everyone, right? And for those of us who have experienced this, you never know when it's going to hit you. It might come at a very unexpected time when you just realize that they are not the same person. So often it starts slow and it's not really noticeable. That's right. Thank you for sharing that. So sometimes it's just a little gnawing feeling that we have, right? And we might push it aside and then something else happens and it kind of accumulates on top of that as well. So thank you for sharing that. So in addition to the ambiguous loss that we just talked about, there's another layer of grief as well, and that is called anticipatory grief. And before we move to that, one of our friends is sharing, I am learning how to be thankful for what my mom can do and remember instead of mourning what she has lost. Thank you for sharing that. So very, very important. That's an excellent coping strategy, and we are going to talk about that a little bit later too. Thank you so much. And another one of our friends is sharing, he doesn't make me laugh anymore. Thank you. So yes, maybe there was something that your loved one always did and they're not able to do that anymore. And we miss that and we mourn that. So thank you everyone for sharing those examples. In addition to the ambiguous loss, there is another layer of grief that we experience before the person dies, and that is anticipatory grief. This is experienced before the true loss occurs. It can be experienced possibly for an extended period of time, and the person who has the illness can experience this, and also the caregiver. So there can be physical symptoms that come along with this as well. So like fatigue, headaches, insomnia, stomach aches. And this is when we know a loved one has an illness that they will eventually die from as well. So I'm going to show you another video on this of a daughter talking about her experience with anticipatory grief.
Everything happened very quickly. It was all of a sudden we were fighting this, and then it was like, no, not anymore. And that was a crazy crazy experience. And so I would catch myself all the time, whether I was at work, whether I was just like at home or, you know, with my mom, where I was just crying as if she had died already, because it was like this anticipation for when she was going to die. I was grieving someone who was alive. I felt both rude, but also just like, I don't know how to process this. My mom is gonna die. What am I gonna do? I want to spend all this time with her, but also I'm trying to process all these things. And so basically that is what you're gonna hear me talk about, is that experience and what that means. And I'm
So there's another layer there of talking about that anticipatory grief. So, and maybe some of our friends who are here with us this evening have thought about this, right? Has this ever gone through your mind, and you think about what might happen, and when your family member is no longer here, some questions that might pop into your mind, or things that might keep us awake in the middle of the night and that we might worry about. We might ask ourselves, how long will they live? What will this look like? You know, what will happen? How will I manage? You know, how will I manage when they get sicker? How will I manage when they're not here anymore? And this is a big one for caregivers. What will this do to me? We know everybody is in deep already, and we know how much we are impacted. And we can think about, what will this do to me as they get worse and as they do die? And then we can think beyond, when we know that they have passed from this earth. What will life be like without them? So these are all things that many, many people worry about who are caring for someone. Is there anything else that we don't have on the list here that you worry about, or that you think about as you anticipate what might happen with your loved one? We'd love to hear from you. So if you want to type in chat and let us know, please type in chat and let us know. But anything else that you worry about that we haven't covered here yet? So while everybody's thinking about that, I know it takes a few minutes to type things in chat. I want everybody to hold on hope. All right, we've talked about the grief now in detail, so hopefully these new terms will kind of help you as you are coping with this type of grief. But we have lots of tips here and lots of strategies to help you cope while you are caregiving. What can be challenging for caregivers is that you have to keep going on, and you have to keep doing all the hard work of caregiving while you are grieving, right? You know, when a loved one does die, and I'm sure everybody here in this room has had that experience of someone dying in their lives before, there's that period of mourning and grief where not a lot is expected of you by society and your family. You get time off of work, you're allowed to grieve, people bring you food, you know, they're very kind to you. But when you're doing this type of grieving before a person dies, this type of grief is not recognized by society, and we don't have any ways as a society to support people as they are going through this type of grief. So hopefully some of the things that we're going to cover will give you some tools that you can use so you can cope with this grief as you are going forward with the hard work of caregiving. And our friend is also sharing, I worry about my dad declining to a point where he doesn't want to live that way anymore. Thank you for sharing that. Yes, we worry, how is what our loved one is going through, how is it going to impact their own mental health, right? And sometimes we feel very powerless with watching everything that is going on as well. So all these things are very real, and they are very present, and we can be thinking about them as well. So so the first thing that we can do to help us cope, and this is an illustration what our friend just shared with us about what she worries about, is that we can acknowledge our feelings. That is the first step. So being aware, like stopping and paying attention to what's going through our minds and how we're feeling in our heart, paying attention to those feelings and acknowledging those feelings. Even if we're not talking about them with other people because we don't feel comfortable, or other people might not understand, or they might be judgmental, being honest with ourselves about what our feelings are, right? that is a great first step. And maybe some of the things that we've talked about here today have given you some terms to describe ways that you are feeling or things that you have been thinking over, a few months or a year or so. That's the first step. Just being aware of how you are feeling and acknowledging how you are feeling, not judging how you're feeling, but just saying, this is how I'm feeling, and being neutral about it, just acknowledging it. That is a great first step. So, a second thing that we can do while we're doing this type of grieving is to really pay attention to our health. Now, there is lots of literature out there now and research showing that when people are grieving, it really can impact their immune systems. So, people can be more prone to get colds or to pick up other illnesses when they are grieving, because it's kind of a whole body experience, right? Think back to a time when someone that you were very close to did die. You feel it everywhere in your body. You feel it in your heart. You feel it in your mind. You feel it everywhere in your body. Sometimes you just can't get out of bed. Sometimes you don't want to eat. It's hard work. We are engaged in our whole beings in dealing with the grief. So when we're dealing with this grief, even though it might be low level for a long period of time, it can have implications for our health. We might start to get depressed. If we get depressed, we might not be doing things for ourselves that are good for ourselves. We might not want to eat that healthy meal or get that exercise or even pick up the phone to make that appointment for ourselves at the doctor's, right? Because we're just feeling overwhelmed by all these feelings of grief. So it's important for us as caregivers to really be committed to taking care of our physical health as best as you can. Pay attention to your sleep, your eating. Think about ways that you are coping and are they helping you? Sometimes we turn to things like alcohol to help us with that, and it doesn't help us in the long run. So just keeping tabs on that as well. If you have health conditions that you're worried about, if you have arthritis or other underlying health conditions, you want to get that looked at now and get that taken care of before it develops into something else that can further complicate your life. So very important. Think about your health. So from our friends who are here this evening, can you think about one thing that you would like to do to kind of support your health as you're going forward and doing your caregiving and dealing with ambiguous grief or anticipatory grief here? And one of our friends is sharing, my dentist told me yesterday that I have started grinding my teeth at night. Hey, I'm so glad that you went to the dentist. That's great. Most of us put that off, right? Because it's just lower on the list of our health needs, right? But that's such good information to have. So now you can think about stress and find other ways to maybe help with that as well. So I can get out more often for a short walk. Wonderful. So even doing something like that, committing to doing that every day can kind of help us feel better while we're doing this hard work of grieving. So thank you to our friends for sharing that as well. So the third thing that we can do to help us cope with the grieving is to really practice self-compassion. And so important for us as caregivers, right? Sometimes when we have these feelings or we say things like, he's here, but he's not here. I don't feel like I'm married anymore. If we say those things to other people who don't understand what we're going through, they might be very critical of us, right? And they might say, how can you say that? Or if you are a spouse and you say that to your adult child, they might say, Mom, how can you say that? Of course, Dad is still here. And of course, he's still your husband. They might not understand the emotional layer that this involves for you. So sometimes other people, may be judgmental if we say these things, but lots of times we can be critical of ourselves and we can be judgmental of ourselves as well. So as we are experiencing these feelings of grief that come before the person dies, it's really important for us not to judge ourselves, just to notice what they're feeling, notice what you're feeling, not to beat ourselves up, and to hold ourselves with tenderness and care. When we have these feelings, we know we're hurting, right? So we know that we need to give ourselves some love as well. So this is very, very important for all of us to hold on to self-compassion and to practice it, to be intentional about it, and to offer ourselves things like positive affirmations, like I am doing the best I can. This is a really hard time for me, and I am giving myself tenderness during this time. These things are very important. And one of our friends is sharing, I do yoga. Excellent. So that's something that can support your physical health, right? Excellent. That can kind of help your emotional health. It can help reduce stress as well. And that can be an act of self-compassion too. So it's good for us all to think about ways that we can practice self-compassion for ourselves. Sometimes it's hard to do that, right? So just even setting the timer for 1 minute during your day and to say to yourself, I'm going to put my hand on my heart and I'm going to offer myself compassion for whatever I'm going through right now and whatever I'm feeling. And then when the minute's up, you can stop and go about your routine again. That 1 minute can really, really make a difference in your day. So the fourth thing we're going to review is to connect with others who can relate. Very, very important. Lots of ways for us to do this. Some people enjoy support groups. They like to be with other people who may be going through a similar experience where you can share stories and know that other people aren't going to criticize you or judge you. They're going to get it and they might have suggestions on how you can cope as well. Some people enjoy that. Some people prefer to talk one-on-one with someone. So it might be a trusted person in your life. It could be someone from your faith community. Many people really do benefit by seeing a counselor one-on-one. So you can have dedicated time to talk about everything that you are going through. Sometimes we need all the extra support that we can get. And even if you're at a point where you feel like you don't want to be talking with other people, setting aside time every day to write in a journal, like to really connect with yourself and to tune in with yourself with what you're going through, that can be a very beneficial thing to help you as well. And sometimes it can be hard to connect with people who are in your circle because they might not understand what you're going through. So finding people who are outside of your circle and other organizations can be very, very helpful. Another wonderful organization that can be such a help is hospice. So, and many times we think of hospice as at the very, very end, right before a person dies. And we might not even know that we can access this service so much earlier in our loved one's illness as well. So we have known people who have been on hospice for a couple years. So find out about this. Talk with your doctor about this. The people at hospice are experts. With all these phases near the end of life, there are a whole team of people there who can support you. They have nurses who will come to the home. They have home health aides who will come to the home, social workers who are available to educate you about what can happen during the end of lifetimes. They have friendly visitors who will come. Some of the hospices, they're all very different. Some send musicians to the home to play the guitar, or there is one in Central Jersey where they actually send a harpist to your home and somebody plays the harp. Like, wow, how wonderful is that? There are some where volunteers will bring you soup, so you'll have like a fresh batch of soup every week. Others where they will send a massage therapist to the house. We had a caregiver where he had home hospice for his wife, and they would send the massage therapist, and his wife was too frail to benefit from the massage. So he got the massage as the caregiver. So you can get lots of wonderful services through hospice. And one of our friends is asking, what is the point at which a person qualifies for hospice? number one, it's something that your doctor has to write the order for. So you have to go and talk with the doctor about that. And it's typically when there is a change in their clinical status. If they're out and about and, going to adult day programs or doing things in the community, they're probably not going to qualify. But if they are at the point where maybe they stopped walking, they were walking before and they're not walking anymore, or they're really not eating much and they've lost a lot of weight, or they might have another physical thing that's going on with them as well, and that's impacting their ability to care for themselves. They're not eating, they don't want to drink. This would be the time when you want to talk with the doctor. They will send someone to the home, a nurse will come to the home, and they will evaluate your loved one to see if they are eligible for hospice. You can interview the hospice at the time to find out about what their services are. They're all different. Some are profit and some are nonprofit. So you can kind of get a sense from that interview about if their philosophy is kind of in line with what your philosophy is as well. So it can hurt just to ask your doctor about that. Every 6 months, you have to get reevaluated to see if you can remain on hospice. We have had many people who have gone on hospice and the care has been so good that they have been kicked off hospice. And then the family is mad because they're no longer on hospice. But the care that you can get on hospice can just be so wonderful. If your loved one is having a hard time eating and they're not eating much anymore, once you get the hospice team involved, sometimes they can assess your loved one and then they can offer really good advice on what foods might be most helpful for them. They can offer like nutritional drinks too. So your loved one might start to eat again and they might start to gain weight, and then they may no longer be eligible for hospice. So don't think that it's the end. Think about it as services that Medicare pays for that will be there to help assist you at this time of life. Never too early just to have that conversation with your doctor. So number 6, what can we do to help us dealing with these difficult times? Lots of times we start to worry when something's coming up, right? If there's a birthday coming up, or maybe there's a family wedding or something like that. And we know it's just not going to be the same because our husband isn't going to be the same if he goes to this function, or we might not want to go somewhere without, her. So, and especially around the holidays, we have our friends who just celebrated, some major holidays, and we have other holidays coming up. Sometimes we notice it at the holidays, right? Maybe our loved one always had a certain dish that they would make at the holidays, or certain prayers that they would say for some of our, religious activities, and they're not able to do that anymore, and then we really realize that they're not the same person. It can be good for us to plan for these activities that we know are coming up, any family celebrations, any special dates associated with our lives. Think about this. Think about how can we adapt what we normally do to include the person as they are now. Do we need to scale things back a little bit? Do we need to not have over so many people? Do we need to maybe go to somebody else's house for an important celebration and have our car so we know we can leave when we need to leave and not have to stay for the whole time? So thinking ahead, anticipating, coming up with another plan that would be comfortable for my loved one and comfortable for me as the caregiver, right? Because of our situations, there might be certain things that we just don't want to do with other people anymore. And that's all right. So what can we do to care for ourselves? Another important thing, number 7, and we have 8 things, we have 2 more tips to review here, is to rethink your relationship. And I think one of our friends mentioned that earlier in chat here, that she thinks about the positive things that she can do with her mother now. And that kind of helps. So that is a really good strategy. So yes, maybe things aren't as they used to be, and your loved one isn't who they used to be, but they're still someone, right? And we are still connected with them. You know, they're still down there underneath. They might be changing, but how can we connect with them? You know, maybe we look at pictures, scrapbooks, things from the past. But as we're letting go of who they used to be and what that relationship used to be, we can try to open ourselves to what might be possible as far as our relationship now. Is it going to be easy? No, definitely not. So, but something for us just to be open to. So acknowledging what is happening, but also focusing on how you can improve your quality of life and connect now is very, very important. So I'm going to have another beautiful video here to show you about a daughter and a mother and how they were managing to keep connecting with each other despite what was going on.
Do you know you're my mama?
Uh-huh.
You do?
Uh-huh.
A while ago you said you didn't know you were my mama.
Well, you act like my mama.
I act like your mama?
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm saying you're my mama.
I'm your mama?
Yeah.
All right, I'll be your mama.
Now, do you think that I would lay here with just anybody?
No. I think you want to have to love them if they want to.
Yeah, you do have to love them to lay down with them like this.
Yeah.
And I love you, Mama.
I love you.
But do you know who I am, though?
Uh-huh.
Who?
Kelly.
Yes, Mama. Yes, I am Kelly.
Uh-huh. Well, I love Kelly. And didn't I name you Kelly?
Yes, you did.
Well, I love you, Kelly.
I love you, Mama. I thought a while ago you didn't know who I was.
I know it well. It was something because when I have some fears, I get here and I'm thinking, my Lord, what in the world am I thinking about?
You are?
Yeah.
What are you thinking about right now?
Well, I'm loving you.
I'm loving you too, Mama.
Oh, well, we're both doing the same thing, aren't
yeah, we are.
Oh, isn't it wonderful?
Yes, it is.
So what a wonderful moment, right? You know, very, very, very touching. That definitely, you know, their relationship was not the same, right? And it looks like Kelly's mom is quite advanced with her illness and she's in bed, and it looked like she didn't oftentimes recognize Kelly, but Kelly went right down in there and she was with her mom where she was in the moment trying to connect with her. So so that's a really great example of how we can try to connect with our loved one, no matter where they are, and kind of look for the best way forward with them based on who they are at this time. We have a friend who is sharing here concrete suggestions for doing things with husband who is no longer your husband. All right, thank you for bringing that up. Yes, we will definitely open up for anybody who wants to share that as well. I just want to go back to we had one other comment here. The insurance has a criteria. Often it's not just actively dying, right? So very good to go and check with your healthcare provider and just ask to have a screening for hospice as well. So, thank you to our friend today who asked that. What can we do if you can't do things that you used to be able to do before? What can you do now? So, you know, like Kelly, it looks like here in this video, her mom probably can't get out of bed a whole lot and probably can't do things that they used to enjoy doing together as a mother and a daughter. But how can you find those things? Does anybody have anything that they would like to share with us? Like things that maybe you found that you can do with your family member now that's, you know, very different than maybe what they used to be able to do before. But if anybody has any suggestions that they would like to type in chat there, we would like to hear those. We all learn from each other and get ideas from each other on things that we can do going forward. So as everybody is thinking about that and hopefully typing something in chat with us, that kind of goes along with renewing our hope, right? We know that our loved one has an illness that does not have a good prognosis, right? We know how much it has impacted our lives, but it's all right for us to also open the door to, hope as well, that there are other ways that we can connect, that we can have some power and some agency to kind of make things as best as we possibly can for ourselves and for our loved one as well. So a friend is sharing with us here, I invent ways for my dad to help me unpacking groceries, folding bags, etc. So thank you for sharing that. So just looking for the tiniest little thing that you can in your normal daily routine to include that person. And it might not be at the skill level that they used to be at, right? But maybe just that small little bit of connection can be a new way going forward. We might be crying as we're doing that, right? Because we realize how competent, our parent or our spouse used to be, and now they can't do those things. But while we're doing that, we can open the door a little bit to hope and to looking for ways, creative ways to connect with that person who is there with us, right? Our loved one is not their illness, right? Sometimes that's all that we see, but we remember that they are still there and they still are a person who is changing very much, right? We have another friend who is sharing with us. For a while we would meet in the backyard and listen to music and connect through music. So that's another wonderful idea there. So yes, just try things. We don't know what might work. So just try something and see what may happen. And it's all right for us even to think about our life when our loved one is not there anymore either. That's all right too. So here's a beautiful quote. Grief is like the ocean. It comes in waves, ebbing and flowing. Sometimes the water is calm and sometimes it is overwhelming. All we can do is learn to swim. So there's no hard and fast answers here. It's getting in there and swimming with the waves and the tides that are coming and going. Another one of our friends is sharing, my mom loves me to comb her hair, do her makeup and her nails. What a beautiful way to connect there. So thank you for sharing that. So everybody, trust yourself as you're going forward. Trust yourself that you are going to find the way to connect with your loved one that feels right for you. And you don't always know what's going to work, right? But trust yourself. So we've talked about quite a few things here. We've talked about connecting with other people, acknowledging your feelings. We've talked about having compassion for yourself, minding your health, planning for events coming up that might be a little bit hard for you, rethinking your relationship. So from all of these strategies that we've talked about here, does any one jump out at you as we're kind of wrapping up our time here? What would you like to do to care for yourself as you grieve? So I'd love to hear from everybody who is here with us. Anything that we talked about tonight. What would you like to do to help care for yourself as you are grieving? And if anybody wants to unmute themselves, we have about 5 minutes left here. We'd love to hear. If you don't want to type in chat, we definitely have a few minutes for that. I don't know if people can unmute themselves or if I have to do that. So if you want to unmute yourself, and you can't, just raise your hand or type in chat here and I will be happy to unmute you as well. Or you can type in chat too. Would love to hear from our friends who are here. What might be one thing that you want to try to care for yourself as you are grieving? And, you might not know for sure what you want to do right now, but you're going to get a nice handout as well. So you can read that over and you can think about that, germinate on that, what you might want to do. We have a friend sharing with us, maybe I should talk with a therapist. Excellent idea. It never hurt anybody, right? This is so much that everybody is going through, and it can be so complex that having that one-on-one person can really be an extra support. And we have another friend sharing with us, take a minute now and then just to focus on my breathing, just a short pause now and then. Yeah, so checking in with yourself and acknowledging how you are feeling, that could be a helpful thing as well. So anyone else, we'd love to hear from you. What is one thing that you would like to do to help care for yourself as you're moving forward to cope with the grief? And we have a friend sharing, I took a break from work today when I felt overwhelmed. Thank you. So being aware of yourself and how you're feeling and creating some space for yourself where you can care for yourself is so very, very important. You know, all these things that we're talking about, other people might not be aware of what we're going through, right? It's not like, you know, we're limping or something like that. It's all internal. So sometimes we have to be the ones to really offer ourselves that care as well. So anybody else, if you want to type with us in chat there, and our friend is sharing, yes, at work, they can't know what I'm feeling. So I had to take the time for myself, right? So being aware of ourselves and then checking in, and hey, everybody reached out here tonight. That's a wonderful thing. So give yourselves credit for that. You have good instincts to reach out and connect with other people who are in a similar situation. So keep doing that. Keep reaching out to the supporters in your life. Keep talking with other people as well. So you know that you're not going through this alone. We are here at Care to Caregivers. You're welcome to call us at our 1-800 number, and our number is on our little participant handout that you're going to get after this event. We have trained peer support specialists who are there to talk with you, so you can call and talk one-on-one with them about what you're going through, talk with the other professionals who may be supporting you at your adult day program, in the nursing home where your loved one might be. One of our friends is sharing, I think it is time to stop trying to deal with some other folks who really cannot relate to what I'm going through. Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing that. Sometimes we need to just pull down the curtains on the people who aren't our supporters right now and reach out to the people who are, right? Because this grieving takes a lot of effort. So pull in and do what you need to do to be with the people who are supporting you. And another friend is sharing with us, thank you for the Zoom meeting tonight and seeing the videos and what others have said. Thank you, everyone. We want to thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate your participation. We participate you being here with everyone else and sharing in the chat with us as well. Know that this is the beginning. Hopefully now you have a little more education on this topic and you'll be able to move forward and to be able to care for yourself as you go through and you do experience everything that you're experiencing with your loved one. Remember, you can reach out if you want to give us your feedback. We'd love to hear that. Let us know how this session was here today. Here's a link, and we'll put this on the handout as well. And you can always call us at Care to Caregivers, and we're here to provide you with one-on-one support as well. So thank you, everyone, for being here. We appreciate it. We look forward to seeing you again at some other webinars that we will have. So everyone, please be well.